My name is Amanda Risky, and I'm going to show you what I like about Desmos and a couple of activities and how it transitions into something in another application. Okay, so I really like the water line activity. I have done this before with my students when I was at Washington International School a couple of years ago. Currently, I'm not with students, so I'm not able to do the activity with them. But I wanted to show you what I really like about it and how it's been useful, and how I can transfer that information to another part of Desmos. So the waterline activity, I'm showing you just the teacher's page. First, the student's graph, given a cylinder or a vessel of water going into it at a constant rate, and they look at the height. The reason that I like it is that the students can check their work along the way. So as you see in this student experience, they can graph when the time is, and they also have a blue indicator line over here, so they can best place their point to guide them to draw the actual graph. Later on, they can interact with each other by making their own glass and then challenging each other to figure out the rate of change or the height of the water over the time of water being poured into it. Okay, so I also like it that the students are able to craft their own shape and then challenge each other. As you can see here on the clipboard that there's a Christmas tree and there is just a plain cylinder, a glass, and one that's a lot more funky. So when you are in the teacher's view, I had a couple friends start some of this. You can see what they've done in the tumbler and the different cups in the cupboard. I really like it because you can see the graph. When I first did this, students were on their individual iPads, and one student actually wrote their name in the graph, which high school students or middle school students can do that, and there's a big temptation, but it was a nice way to just be able to make sure that the students were on task and engaged, and once you redirected them, they were really great. So I found it a good management skill as well. So it's not just the teacher is giving the students something to do on the computer. Teachers really need to be active online as well as seeing what the students are doing online. So it really, I think, gives you a nice overview of what the students are doing, and also lends for good conversations along the way, so it can be integrated into a lesson and not separate from a lesson. Okay, so I really liked that activity with students, and I want to show you something that I also can use within the math classroom and something that's similar to Desmos. So I really like to use social justice in my class and also talk about things that are going on in the world. So I used refugee populations by country. So the World Bank, they give great data, as I'm sure you're already aware of. You can see what's happening worldwide, amount of refugees by population, refugee population by country or territory of asylum. So this is the world, and it gives from 1990 to 2014 and 2015 and some of the others. You can download the information, you can get the data bank, you can also see the tables. And what I think is super cool is if you scroll down, you can see the different countries and what their graphs look like. So a small graph a line graph from 1990 to 2014. So a neat activity for students to do. Now they didn't have the teacher's view in Desmos, but it is a way that they could look at the data. So they could see, okay, well, which one is a function or which one has a piecewise function that we can identify, or is it just random? Is anything happening gradually? So you can kind of have a general overview of what's happening in the different countries, and maybe curious why there is no information for these, or if they're just not taking any refugees in, what's happening in those countries. So a lot of inquiry can come across here, and we can see what type of rates are happening. So I downloaded from the World Bank this data in an Excel sheet. So you can see it's organized by populations and years, by country, population, and year. So I decided to pick out a few of the countries. I picked out Greece, UK, Jordan, and Turkey. Now I did this due to location. UK is a little further away, and thinking about Syria in general and what's happening in the Middle East and what's happened in the Middle East over the last 10 years or so. So I've took this data and I decided to put it in a Desmos sheet. Now, what I really like is that feature that you can go into this plus and add a table or just copy and paste it in. So what's neat about this is we have our x sub 1, y sub 1, z sub 1, u sub 1, v sub 1. So we can compare it all to x. So I had x being the years. Our y sub 1 is Greece. Our z is the UK. U is Jordan. And v is Turkey. So we can see that there could be different discussions that come out of this that are really interesting. So we already see within this graph, I changed the settings by going to this little wrench. I have it going from, I can change this, before I had it at 1950 to 2020, just to think about it in terms of years. And then I have it some negative just so we can see the x-axis. But we can see the differences. Now, the countries are Greece and Turkey that are lower, and the UK is here. Now, we see the UK is kind of a curve, and we have this massive jump that happens in Jordan. And a lot of that is due to location and political stance, too. So we could talk about this within a class about how many refugee applicants there are and what is the size of the funnel that that country is allowing, similar to what's happening in that glass, the water into the glass. So it would be a neat connection that we could make through Desmos. And with this, all this beautiful data that's in here, we could also come up with functions that could go along with it. So I'm looking at the UK, just because it's a smoother curve. We could look at Jordan as a piecewise function and take this information from, we can just hover over the point to get it to 1990 to 2005 and take that collection of data to see what type of function, a linear function, and if we could get a good function for that, a good regression. But instead I decided to just look at Greece, and here we have a parabola in. So I put in, I'm going to do it again. So what we can do is we can go add function, and what's cool is we could say, well, I wanted to look at z sub 1, and we do that little sueño. And saying that, say I wanted to just look at a quadratic. Now it doesn't completely look like a quadratic, part of it does. And that's what I want to compare is that, so I'll put a coefficient, so x sub 1 to the power of 2, arrow out of there, plus b x sub 1, make sure I'm arrowed out, plus c, and we can see what we get. You can hide the keypad, and we have that graph. Now it's not really great. The residual is 0.0776, but I think we can do better. And so what I did before, by hovering over the points, I'm going to take this graph off by unhighlighting it. Really like it that you can highlight and unhighlight also on the graphs. So what I did is I decided, okay, well, this is what, 1999 to 2011. I just want to look at that section because there it kind of looks like it's a parabola. And it looks like you could see why they would be more gradual. They're further away and they are more driven by policy in taking people into their country or not taking them in. So I copied and pasted from the same Excel sheet and put it into Desmos here. So I will put those in, and I have that Z3 still looking at the UK. Did another one, and I was able to make a parabola that describes that time, and I can highlight it there. So those are just some things that I wanted to highlight, and I thought that there was a really cool connection again between what Desmos is doing within the teacher information and also data that's already out there that we could use in our classroom. Some things that I want to develop on more, like when I was doing the graphs, I tried to see if I could just restrict this. So normally you can do restrictions by doing your brackets, and if I just wanted to look from 1999 greater than equal to x1, less than or equal to 2011, but it wouldn't let me do that, and I'm not sure why. If you could help me with that, that would be fantastic. Maybe I could put that in there, and that would do something, but no. So I'm still been playing around with that, and I'm not quite sure. So my only workaround has been to copy and paste the data in another way. Also, I'm not able to copy the whole graph. So that's another thing. If you want to help me out with that, that'd be beautiful. But that's just my idea on how to incorporate our water line by Desmos to refugee population, and looking at graphs and data in another context. Anywho, thank you so much for considering my application.